Well, today we're going to talk about everything money. Money, because money is the number one reason that couples fight.
Yeah.
It's also in the top 3 reasons why people get divorced. And money is it can be real contentious, and you end up fighting about it all the time.
Yeah.
So Dr. Faisal, today, we want to talk about why is money such a problem in relationships? Why do we fight about it all the time? What is it about money that makes it difficult in a lot of relationships?
Yeah. Real good question, babe. The real question we should be asking is, whose money is it? And if we can answer that question, either before someone gets into a relationship, very important conversation to have, or while they're in a relationship. Now, typically we think when it comes to relationships that you should have the money conversation, the M combo, right?
Yes.
And so it's like in this conversation, you're thinking, I need to practically understand what are your debts, what are your assets.
Well, I want to know how much are you making, buddy?
Yeah, right? That's the question, right? But really what's even more important than that is, what is your relationship with money and whose money actually is it? Now, you might be thinking...
That's quite some question. You said your relationship with money and whose is it? Because, hey, I'm thinking, I'm earning X amount of money. This is my money that I'm bringing, or whatever assets they are that I'm bringing into a relationship. So it's kind of like my money.
Yeah. And so if that's the way you go into a relationship, that foundational attitude itself will always cause conflict in the relationship with respect to money. That's the problem.
Okay, you're going to have to unpack this for us.
So here we go.
Yeah.
So in God's order of things, if you want a relationship to function in God's way, then it's actually God's money, and you are a steward or asset manager of what you've been entrusted with. Now that's kind of crazy, because when you approach it and an understanding of money that way, that the whole earth belongs to God. He owns all the intellectual property and the rights of creation. He owns all the silver. He owns all the gold. He owns all the precious metals. He owns all assets, so it all belongs to him. He owns all the real estate. The earth belongs to him. The universe belongs to him. The cosmos belongs to him. So
and this is, as a believer, this is what we believe.
This
is not just a scripture verse. We actually believe that it all physically it belongs to him.
That's right. Like the psalmist says, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. The silver, the gold, and everything that's in it. So even the people belong to him. So when you approach money with that attitude and that perspective, that automatically is going to define how you see money, how you handle money. So now when you're choosing a partner, that's the question you want to understand about each other. Because if it's not God's money, it's either yours or mine, and there's always going to be arguments and conflicts surrounding the topic of money.
Yeah, because if I think it's my money and then you think it's your money, and then now we're going to end up fighting because I want to spend it on, I want to shop and I want to buy clothes, and you want to, go fishing or hunting or whatever it is that you want to do. And then we have to pay for things together. So you're always fighting about, well, who gets to spend the money, or how do you do it?
That's right.
And that's obviously, if I think about, early on in my relationship, those are some of the things that we ended up fighting about.
Wow.
Because my idea of what was important and my husband's idea of what was important were a little bit different.
Okay.
But what you're saying is that actually, as believers, we want to understand it's not yours or mine, but it's actually God's.
That's right.
And if we take that, explain that to us. How does this change?
So first of all, if it's God's money, but somehow it goes through our hands, that means we have a responsibility with it. In other words, we're called to steward it. That's how do we handle it? How do we manage it?
Okay.
So that's where this starts, but it's a heart matter. Because Jesus even said it this way. Jesus said in Matthew 6:21, he said, where your treasure is, where your money is, there your heart will be also. So he intricately connected our hearts and money. That's why it's such a deep issue. So it's actually a heart issue. So in your heart, if you see it as your money and not God's, you're already going to have conflicts.
Okay.
Because your heart is always going to be swayed by money. But when it becomes God's money, it then starts to become something that's designed for a unique purpose and a tool in your life. And now you understand the purpose of money, and it's not about it's more important than your mate. And responsibility begins now. Okay, we have access to this money. We're thankful that we have the opportunity to steward the resources we have. So maybe you're a young couple and you're kind of starting out and you're like, hey, we're going to be getting married. You got to figure out how much money you have to steward. And you start by saying it's God's money. Okay, so what does that mean? What does that look like on a day-to-day basis in our lives practically? That's where that practical conversation comes in. So the first thing is, if it's God's money, then we're going to honor God with the first tenth, which is called the tithe, which is God's order of handling money, that the first 10% of everything that comes through your hands actually belongs to him.
Yeah.
So God says, I entrust you with the money that I actually own, and now you're going to take the 10% and return to me something that's a sign of your covenant relationship with me. So in other words, the tithe is the wedding ring of your covenant relationship with God.
Yeah.
That I'm married to God, he's my provider, he's my source of provision, everything belongs to him, and he's the one who provides for me. Now that's a whole different attitude going into a relationship.
Yeah.
Now, if the other partner doesn't see it that way, you have a problem.
Well, that's what in an earlier episode you had actually said this is a question you should ask someone when you're trying to figure out, are you compatible?
Yes.
You ask them, should you, do you tithe? Because that would tell you a whole lot about how your partner sees money.
Exactly. And also, where do you tithe? How do you tithe? What does it mean to you? Because some people, that term means one thing to one person and another thing to another. So it's always good to clarify, what is the definition of that for you in your life? Somebody, they think tithing just means, I give $5 or something in something. And that's not tithing. Tithing is 10% of your gross income. If you're working in employment, you're going to turn over to God. That's huge for a lot of people if they've never done it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, what? Are you kidding me? But that's where you're going to find out where your heart is and where your treasure is.
Sorry, I just want to clear this up. So this tithe that you're giving, comes into the church that you're attending?
Yes, it comes into the house of God, biblically. There's no other place for the tithe to go in the Bible. It comes into the house of God, the treasury of God's house. And so God's made it very, very clear. So the church that you're part of, which you should be if you're a believer, you should be part of a church family somewhere. And where you are, that's where you would honor God with the tithe because it actually belongs to him. And when you release something that belongs to him, God promises to do some incredible things in your life. And basically he says, look, I'm the one who's blessed you and caused you to have the job you have. I'm the one who gave you a mind to think with. I'm the one who gave you the ability to do what you do today. And the whatever you're doing, whether it's discovery, whether it's science, whether it's study of it, I own all the IP rights. Intellectual property is mine. Everything's mine.
Yeah.
So he's saying, now by you taking 10% and honoring me, you're saying you're in covenant relationship with me, and you're inviting me to get involved with the remaining 90% of your resources now.
Okay.
And that's where wisdom's going to come on how to steward that money and how to spend that money and how to manage that money. So that's why you start there. Okay. And if you are a couple and you have this agreement and you understand that, you're already way down the road in a positive direction. Because now you're saying it's God's money. And because your money and heart are connected, when you honor God with the tithe, it's actually your heart that's honoring him.
Okay.
Which is a good posture to be in.
Yes.
It's a posture of humility, right? Before honor, there is humility. So this is a humble posture, which allows you to also receive. Humility in God's order of things is not a posture of saying I'm unworthy. That's not humility in God's order of things. From God's point of definition of humility, it's a posture to be able to receive from the greater one. That God, you are the greater one. You own everything. My life is in your hands. My provision comes from you. Therefore, I humble myself and I honor you with something that is yours. And in doing so, that's a humble posture that God says, okay, now let me open the windows of heaven, pour blessing into your life more than you have room to even contain in this lifetime.
Okay.
So it's a big deal.
Yes.
Now, if somebody doesn't know about this, one day we can do a podcast on this somewhere.
Yeah.
But more importantly, in fact, I think on our website we have the Truth of Economy book that does touch this kind of stuff.
It actually gives, if you are interested in maybe learning some more about this, you can go to the drfaisalmalick.com website, and we have the book, The Truth of Economy, that you've written, which kind of really explains this in simple language so you can understand what it is, how it works, and kind of get some of the biblical concepts. You're welcome to go there and do that.
Yeah.
But coming back to today, as you're talking about this, explaining the tithe, and that's 10%, but then you're left with this 90%.
Yes.
So now, but you still have to handle this together with your partner.
Yes,
now
do.
you know it's God's, but now what? How do you actually manage or steward this, in the words you use?
Okay. And so now the next step is that you want to say, okay, God, I got 90% left. I need wisdom on how I'm going to manage this money. So practically speaking, if you're married, the smart thing to do is all your money. There's no such thing. So if you're stewards now, before you were married, you were a steward of what God entrusted to you. Now that you're married, you're both stewards of what God has entrusted to you.
Okay.
So it's no longer your money or his money. It's God's money now. Now, this is a test of your unity. This is
I was
big.
going to say, does God's money go in one bank account or does it stay in two?
Really, there's only two kinds of money, right? There's her money and she money, they say, right? and no, it's not really
It's
how...
all our money, but it's mine.
Yeah. So the way it kind of works is when you come and approach money with that right attitude, you say, okay, this is yours, God, thank you. And when you become one in marriage, in God's definition of oneness, spirit, soul, and body, of course you should consider becoming one in every other way too. The finances have to be stewarded with the attitude and heart that it's not your money. Whether you make less or someone makes more in the relationship, it all goes in one pot. It's all equal.
But what about like if one is bringing like a significant amount
Yes.
of debt into the relationship? Like
Yes.
say I grew up and I handled my money well and I've got some
Yes.
savings, and then I marry someone who's, got significant
Yes.
debt. What about that? Or doesn't know how to handle money?
Yes, that's a problem, isn't it?
That's a big problem.
Yeah, and that's why you have to have these conversations. So, first of all, if you have a lot of debt, was it because you were getting education maybe, perhaps? Or were you a poor spender? Or how did you grow up? And we know statistically, if you grew up with an absentee father, chances are you won't manage money well, statistically.
Really?
Yeah. So sometimes we got to get to the root of the issue.
Okay.
And so these are the type of conversations that need to be had. And of course, it's the reality. And this is why you get to choose whom you marry. Because with this type of disclosure, you're like, okay, what am I getting myself into? And because now that's both your debt.
Well, exactly. That is both of your debt, and I mean, can I just ask this question?
Sure.
Say you've met someone, you think they could be the one, but they're like significantly in debt, and you kind of see some red flags, for want of a better word, about how they handle money. Is that a deal breaker, or how would you handle that?
Yeah, it can be. I think you have to have some conversations with them, help understand where they're coming from. Is there something you guys can do together to get some help? Is there a program that you can learn about how to budget and manage money? I think the bigger questions are this. To get to the bottom of somebody like that, okay, how do you spend money? So are you spending money because of a form of emotional therapy? Okay. Is it a form to deal with your pain? Do you spend money out of pain? You're hurting, so you go spend money, you go buy something, or you go do this. Are you irresponsible with your money? So here's the number one thing. Are you living above your means or below your means? Okay, that's more important. So, and if you were living above your means, can you make that adjustment or not? That's what you got to identify.
Yeah.
And so the first thing any couple should do, and this is hard for all of us, first of all, we're honoring God with the tithe. That's done, let's just say.
Yeah.
Now 90% is left. The next question is, by the way, are we living above our means or below our means? Are we going to just finance everything and just start making payments on this and like payments on the couch, payments on the TV, payments on the car, payment on the house? Listen, you're going to be in trouble. So you have to be like, can we live below our means for a while, considerable while, until we can get to the place that money's being managed well, especially if you have a lot of debt, right? Because not only do you want to have money to honor God with the tithe, you also want to have money to sow seed. Because sowing seed financially, which starts over and above your tithe, opens the door for miraculous interventions from God financially.
Yeah.
And anybody that does this stuff, you'll know they always have great stories of God intervening in their life financially, and I can go into tons and tons of stories of witnessing God do this. But then on top of that, you still need to live. You need to pay your bills.
Yeah.
So everything kind of comes in one pot. Make sure the tithe goes out. Make sure there's some money set aside to sow as God's Spirit leads you to sow and to give, because we ought to be generous, because we're learning God's way of handling money.
Yeah.
And we also have the remaining portion of money, which I call bread.
Okay.
So there's really three categories of money: tithe, seed, and bread.
Okay.
Bread is what you live on. Bread is what you build your future on. That's how you pay your bills. That's how you grow your life financially and so forth. And God will bless these arenas when you bring God into the relationship you have with money.
Okay.
That's what you're going to find. Supernatural favor, increases at your job. Your business will grow. You're going to get contracts you weren't expecting. You're going to get things unlocked into your life that are supernatural. You're like, oh my gosh, what is happening? It's beautiful to have God on your side, but the heart stuff has to be dealt with first.
Okay.
So this is a whole different way to think, right? So first of all, it's God's money. Number two, you're both stewarding it. And number three, now, if you've done some kind of analysis of each other and say, look, why do we have this debt? Okay, what can we do? Can we live beneath our means? Because we do need to make sure that we get this debt under control. So that means we got to be careful what we spend.
And I guess this is going to really speak to the character of the people involved, because if someone says, okay, I'm prepared to do what it takes to get out of this debt, that's something that you can work with that. Because hey, if you're going to have to pull in your belt for a little while, and usually when couples get married, they do have to do that initially, because you are trying to build something, and like you said, you don't want to start off with all these payments for everything. You actually want to just build slowly and try and stay out of debt if you can. but it speaks to the character if the person's ready to say, okay, I'm willing to learn. I'm open to, pulling in my belt, doing things like this, and I'm open to learning a new way of handling money if the reason I've overspent or whatever is because of maybe a trauma or something from my past.
Yeah, all that stuff. And I think that way you have a chance to really know, is this a relationship I really want to pursue? And really, if you love somebody and you really feel there's something more powerful, there's other things that are much more valuable than money. But the money thing can be addressed up front.
Yeah.
And there's some things there, and you're like, okay, let's deal with it. And by the way, that can change. But the love you want to grow, the relationship you want to build, so it's just about some of the decisions you have to make surrounding your finances.
Okay.
So the one thing is having that one account where everything comes in. Then I recommend, she has an account and then he has a bank account. And you can take an allowance from that money, whatever is reasonable based on your income, and you can each receive some money. So you have some freedom to spend money to do things you like to do. Might be your hobbies, might be whatever you want to do. So you have a little bit of money that you handle in your own way, because everybody needs to handle money. It's a good thing to do. So the first part takes care of God and takes care of your bills, and you have some money that you can handle.
Okay, I have to ask this question,
Sure.
because this is me. All right, so this idea of, putting an allowance in, do you think that you should be allowed to spend money that your partner doesn't know about? I mean, I say it's like whatever X amount that you have. Is it good that you're spending money that your partner doesn't know about? Do you keep that secret? Is that good or bad?
That's a question of trust in the relationship, right? If your allowance is a certain amount of money, perhaps you want to buy your spouse a gift. It's nice to buy them a gift without them knowing it's coming, right? There's some things that you want to just do, whatever they might be. And that's okay. And I think you discuss in your budget how you're going to live. So, for example, you're married now and you're like, hey, listen, I want to be able to get my hair done. I want to get my nails done. I want to do this stuff. You got to decide, does that come out of the main account?
Yeah.
And it's part of your monthly budget? Does it come out of your allowance? Whatever. But you just know. You got to know what's important to you guys, and you have to know your financial situation that you're in. The most important thing is, it's more important to learn how to handle money with God, and your relationship be right with money, because eventually God will prosper you.
Yeah.
Like, many people know my story. I used to live in a car.
Yeah.
So, I mean, think about it. That's where I started. But these are some of the things I learned. And as I began to apply them, and my relationship with money changed, I began to see God bless me and prosper me. And I realized money's not the most important thing anyway. God is to me. And so by applying these things we talk about, they're not theory, they're reality. And by the grace of God, I've been able to see the value of honoring God with what belongs to Him, and realizing I'm only a steward of everything He's entrusted me with. And so all that I have to steward today, it's still all God's. And so it's not mine.
Yeah.
I'm just an asset manager.
Yeah.
And that's the attitude. That's a better way to go about it.
But you've grown into this.
Yeah,
You've grown into this.
Sure.
And as I sit here today, I know that maybe some of our audience is thinking, well, that's great, and you've grown into this. But what about if we're not there yet? What about if we're actually still, we want it all to be God's, and we are, perhaps tithing, but we're actually still struggling here because, what happens if there isn't enough for, you to spend what you want and I to spend what I want? And now you got, there's only $100 and who gets to spend it, kind of thing. What about that?
And that's hard. And that's where, you actually, that's why I said you manage your money, we live beneath your means. And you have to sacrifice, both of you have to. So it's not about fighting over the money, it's about how can we work together.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the reality, then this is how we're going to deal with it. But you never create a poverty mindset in your home.
Okay, let's talk about that a little bit. What's a poverty mindset
So,
in the
for
home?
example, when you grow up as kids, it starts with your parents saying, hey, listen, we don't have any money, and you got to finish everything on your plate, and be careful about this, and we got starving children in Africa, and this and that, and the guilt trip about money. That's the wrong attitude.
The guilt trip.
Yeah, do not connect guilt and money. Do not connect an emotion like that, because that will always breed poverty. And you don't want a poverty mindset. A poverty mindset is that we're never going to have enough. There never is enough out there.
Okay.
Wrong way to think. You want to have an abundance mindset, that God owns everything, and I trust Him for provision, and in the right time, He'll release it into my hand to steward. So you want to teach your kids how to steward and handle money, rather than think, first of all, it has no value. You want them to understand it has value.
Yes.
So you let them learn value, so you don't spoil your kids, in my opinion. And a lot of wealthy people do that, and their kids get spoiled, and they just want to give them money, and they try to cover up issues in their family and in their home with spending money, and that never works.
Okay.
So you rather want to teach kids on how to steward money from a young age. Say, by the way, it's God's money. Teach your kids to start tithing when they're young. This is your allowance, and they learn how to tithe, and they learn on God. You teach kids how to ask God for things that you need, because your Heavenly Father will provide for you. You teach them how to believe God. That's going to change your children right from the beginning.
Yes.
And you let them know that God is a loving Father and that money is not that important, but you still got to learn how to steward it. It's a tool. It's not the be it and end all.
Yeah.
And we know that money's not the most important thing because we trade money for things that are more important every day.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, why would we spend money?
Yeah.
You know, people trade money to live in a home. They trade money to maybe buy a vehicle. They trade money to go on vacation or spend time with one another.
Get an education.
Or get an education or go visit family members or this. Well, obviously, they're more important than the money because you're willing to exchange it.
That's
so
right,
you already know money's not the most important thing. So when it comes to God, why do we wrestle with that?
Yeah.
Right? It should be something easy. And so once you do that and you start making practical decisions, you're right. You have to be wise. And then if you need more, you need to ask God. That God, I've talked about something called the tither's warranty.
Yes.
You know, that if I had a problem, I would go to God and say, I got a tither's warranty. And, you've heard me tell the story about the washing machine. My washing machine broke down and it was one of those high efficiency washing machines. And I didn't know this, but I was putting the wrong detergent in it at some point.
You never told me that part. Okay.
I gave away what the real problem was. But I didn't even know it. And it was back in the day when they started making these high efficiency washing machines. And so my machine started making this noise and the drums started coming apart. I don't know. It sounded like horrible. And so I contacted the service company. The guy comes over and he looks at the machine and he goes, this is a big problem. We've got to change the drum. And I think the drum and then the labor was something like $1,400 if I'm not, it was a lot of money. And the parts and labor and stuff. And I said, well, and what about warranty? He goes, well, the warranties run out on this, sir. And then he said this statement, which I didn't like. He goes, I sense in my gut. And he was trying to be spiritual with me because he figured I was some kind of spiritual guy. And he said, they will not be able to do anything for you. Now, I didn't like that comment. It irritated me. I said, who's this guy to tell me what my God can do?
Yeah.
So I picked up the phone. He said, how does this machine sound? Does it sound like on railroad tracks? Does it sound like it's skipping tracks? I said, it looks like the train's going to crash. Sounds like a train's going to crash. And the person said, okay, sorry, it's out of warranty. We can't do anything about that. And so I said, and so inside, here's what I prayed. I said, God, I'm a tither. Because the warranties run out by the manufacturer. Yes. But I have a tither's warranty. And because I'm a tither and honor you, I'm wondering, this is the first time I tried this. I said, God, I'm claiming my tither's warranty on the machine. Yeah. Now, by the way, I could have bought the machine. I had the money to do it. Yeah. But it was just a matter of principle, and it was a fun moment for me to say, okay, God, does this work? So I'm like, hey, God, can tither's warranty apply to this? Because the manufacturer's warranties run out. But because I'm a tither, and this is in my care, I'm asking for the tither's warranty to step in. So the lady's trying to deny me at the moment, we're out of warranty, and then she goes, hold on one second, sir. And she comes back, and she says, sir, you won't believe this. I talked to my manager. We're going to make an exception for you. We're going to send the parts down to you, and we're going to take care of all this parts for you and no charge. I'm like, well, thank you very much.
That's quite the change of tune.
So then I hang up the phone, and I'm like, wow, thank God, the tither's warranty works. Yeah. And I said, wait a minute, God, what about the labor? I said, God, if your tither's warranty can cover the parts, it should cover the labor as well. So I said, God, can you take care of the labor? Yeah. Well, within 5 minutes, the service company calls me. He goes, you won't believe what happened. They're not only going to take care of the parts of the machine for you, they're going to cover the labor as well.
Wow.
And so the fee that you paid for the service to come out and look, we're going to waive that as well.
So it covered everything.
That's called tither's warranty. Okay? Now, guess what the problem was? I was the problem. I was using the wrong detergent. But
the tither's warranty worked anyway. Wow, that's quite the story.
The tither's warranty is better.
Takes into account our stupidity.
Yes, it does. Because it's based on covenant mercy and grace. Well, that's what I'm saying. So things like that start happening. You start finding unusual things happen in your life. That's just one example. And I could give you time and time again. Another problem, my car, it ran out of warranty, but something about a side panel, it busted, one of those flaps on the side of my door. Okay. And because I kept putting bottles of water in there. Okay. And so obviously the flap broke, and they said the only way to fix it is to change the entire interior door panel.
Oh, wow.
And it was going to cost $3,000 or something like that. Yeah. And they said, this is not under warranty, this is damage. And I said, Lord, what about the tither's warranty? And I said, why don't you just call the manufacturer and just ask if they would, do anything for me?
Yeah.
They said, okay, sir, they normally don't do stuff like this, and we've tried other things in the past, and they don't do it. I said, well, why don't you just give it a try?
Yeah.
They said, okay. They give it a try. They call me back and say, you won't believe it. They said, you know what? We normally would never do this, but for this customer, we'll go ahead and do it. We'll give them the whole door panel, no charge. Take care of it.
Wow.
I was like, wow, tither's warranty. Whose fault was it? Mine. Because I was loading that thing up with too much weight, and that just wasn't, good. So sorry, I made a mistake. For anybody that's wanting to point fingers at me, my point is the tither's warranty is better than any manufacturer's warranty on this planet. And that's just an example of practical things. What about other things that it applies to? Like getting a raise at your job, getting a new job, enhancing your business, bringing peace into your home. Your machinery doesn't break down. Your car runs longer. Your tires last longer. All this stuff starts happening. Versus when you don't tithe, something's always going wrong. Your tire is going flat. You just had a flat tire. Then you had a flat tire. You change tire number 1, change tire number 2. Then you have this drama over here. Then you have this machine breaks down. This happens over here. The fridge breaks down. Then the washing machine breaks down. The roof starts leaking. And you're like, oh my gosh, what is happening in my life? Because if you're not a tither, your money is going to start being in a bag filled with holes, and things are going to go wrong. And that's just the honest truth.
But as I'm listening to you, I'm realizing you've used this term a lot. Your relationship with money is actually really connected to your relationship with God, because you realize it's all God's money.
That's right.
And so your relationship with money is based on that, not based on the amount you have.
That's right.
So coming back to that, what you said earlier, your relationship with money is one of the key things that influences your life and relationships.
Yeah, and if your understanding is it's God's and you've not done a good job of stewarding it, and you've messed up, like you use that example of tremendous amounts of debt, overspending, you say, okay, God, first of all, I'm sorry. This is your money, and I've been mismanaging it. I ask you to forgive me. I ask you for wisdom. I'm willing to learn. What do I need to study? What do I need to learn? How can I do that? For example, starting with this book, Truth of Economy, download it. It's an ebook. You can get it from our website. And before you know it, you're on your way to learning something about managing money properly. And so that's a step forward in that right direction. And then you pray, and then you do the right thing, and you ask for supernatural help, and God will come along inside and help you. Things are going to happen where certain debts are going to be paid off easily. Unusual resources will start to come into your life. Things like that will happen, and you'll start to move forward. But this is a great practice because it actually disciplines your heart. Because now, where your treasure is, your heart is. So now you begin to honor God with money. Your heart starts to go in the direction of God. You begin to apply His principles concerning management of money. It really helps your marriage. And guess what? You start to believe together. And what a joy it is when you begin to believe together to achieve a milestone. You celebrate that milestone together. You begin to bond together over the victory that you now experienced as a couple and how God brought that into your life. Well, that's good for your relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So all these dynamics are there. But yes, it's a big issue. It needs to be talked about up front. And if you have financial problems, that's okay. Everybody does. We're not perfect with managing money. We all, I'm a spender too in certain areas. We all have certain areas we're going to spend money. And first of all, you don't want to be a stingy person either.
You don't want to be that person who's just holding on to money and hoarding money as well.
Exactly. That's ridiculous as well. So, it says those that hoard money, they end up, going broke in the end anyway. So really, you didn't come in this world with anything, and you're not leaving with a U-Haul trailer attached to you when you leave. So you got to manage money wisely. You want to invest it in the right things, and then you can practically learn how to let money grow in your life, invest money. But before you get there, you got to get these basics right. And you'll see your money will always go further when you do these kind of things. I could share one crazy story if you like.
Yeah, go for it. We have some time before we have to finish. Go ahead.
I remember in my early years, I had borrowed some money from a cousin, a family member of mine. And how many know borrowing money from family is horrible?
It's always bad news.
Okay, bad news. And so I borrowed some money, and the time came I needed to pay the money, but I actually didn't have the money. It was something like, I don't know, like $14,000 or something like that I borrowed, okay? A lot of money back in the day.
Yeah.
And so now I was a follower of Jesus, but remember I used to be a Muslim, so I had now become a follower of Jesus.
Yes.
And so my aunt started calling me and saying, hey, because I borrowed money
This is the one you borrowed the money
from her son.
Okay.
And she was now in Canada, and he was in the U.S. somewhere. And she said, hey, you owe money to my son. Where's the money? I said, well, I'm working on it, and I'm going to get it to you, and I'm sorry about this. And she goes, well, is this what your Jesus teaches you?
Oh, wow. So because she was, of course, still
Muslim.
Still Muslim. Okay.
And she goes, is this why you became a Christian?
Oh my gosh.
And she started going at me, and that hurt.
I'm sure.
And I said to her, I said, listen, you can say whatever you want. This is not Jesus' fault. This is my fault. But I will tell you this, my God will deliver me from this so I can pay you. And I started to pray. I said, Jesus, you died on the cross. You shed your blood for me. I made a mistake. Father, I repent. I need you to help me get out of this.
Yeah.
Well, I said, and Jesus will, and I told her, Jesus is going to take care of this. Well, next day, phone call. So has Jesus come up with the money yet? Okay.
Oh my gosh. Talk about being put on the spot.
I was like, oh my gosh, has Jesus come up with the money yet? And next day, has Jesus come up with the money yet? And so I'm like crying. I'm like, God, I just thank you that you redeemed me from the curse of the law. I made a mistake here. You're my provider. I honor you. And this is a problem. You see, I had a problem, a mistake I made in the past that was now coming to bite me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I needed help. You see, that's what I'm saying. Sometimes you need help. We all make mistakes.
Yeah.
But this is where our relationship with God counts. So because I was a tither and I honored God, I was relying on God once again to help me in this situation. And so what happens is she calls me one morning, and I'm like, oh no, here she is.
Seeing if Jesus has arrived with the money yet.
Yeah, and I said, hello. And she goes, actually, I'm sitting here at the CIBC bank here, and this was, I think, in Mississauga or somewhere, whatever.
Yeah.
And she goes, I have someone here that wants to talk to you. And she goes, I've been here, and I've been looking to see if I had any accounts in Canada from years ago.
Okay.
And they told me, well, we don't have an account in your name, but if you know this person who says is a relative of yours, we have some money that is here that belongs to him. Could you have a way to get a hold of him?
Okay.
She goes, actually, I can. So she passes the phone to the person. They talk to me, verify my identity. So I said, what's going on? They said, well, sir, we have a GIC that was here in your name that was left, I guess, from your dad many years ago, and it renews every 5 years. Today is the renewal date. Would you like to renew this GIC?
Oh, wow.
Or would you like to do something else with it? I said, how much is it? And it was $17,500 and change. I said, I'll take it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So they gave me the money. I was able to honor God with the tithe on it. And I still had enough money left over that I could pay off my debt and be free. Now, what Jesus did was not only did he pay off my debt, he uncovered this resource that I didn't even know about. That's key.
Yeah.
Number two, so God doesn't just make money fall from the sky.
That's right.
It's practical.
Yeah.
He uncovers money that's already there.
Yes.
Right? It's like Jesus that needed to pay taxes for him and Peter.
That's right.
And he got the gold out of the fish's mouth.
That's right.
He says,
Yeah.
go catch that fish. It'll have gold in its mouth. Pay my taxes and yours.
Yeah.
So Jesus was really practical about
Yeah.
this, okay? And so in like manner, the money was uncovered. And guess who God used to do it? My same aunt. The one that was saying that Jesus couldn't come up with the money, and where's the money? Jesus said, don't worry, I'll use you to find the money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And now she's like, whoa.
Wow. Your Jesus can do a
He
thing
can
or
deliver,
two.
right?
Yeah.
And so in reality, I was able to pay that debt off. Thank God for that. Look, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have borrowed that money. I was naive. I was young. I was stupid. But I did. We all make those kind of mistakes,
we
right?
do.
And in that process, God's goodness and his mercy came in and helped me in that case. Why? Because my heart was like, hey, I want to do this thing right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's why today I don't loan anybody money. I don't believe in loaning money. I believe in blessing people. Because in
Wow.
the kingdom of God, we sow and we reap. We don't buy and sell. Now, you buy and sell in the economy, in the business world, in the marketplace, and Jesus wants us to function there. But what I do is I don't loan money to people because you know what? It affects relationships. It messes up relationships. So if I can help somebody, I will help them.
Wow.
No, you don't have to pay me back. I'll bless you. But I don't need to lend you money because I'm not going to put you under that system, under that burden, under that way of thinking and living because you're more valuable than money. So if I can't help you, I'll help you. If I can't help you, I can't. Does that make sense?
Wow.
That's
Yeah,
how I
because you're understanding it's all God's money. You're a steward of it.
Yeah.
And that's changing your whole way that you look
That's
at
right.
everything.
And live.
And live.
And-
Wow.
And back to your point, you're starting somewhere,
Yes.
but over time, you start to learn these things. Remember, I used to live in a car. Look at this other dumb decision I made. By then I was living, I think, in a basement or something.
Yeah.
And I still had this money that I borrowed. And, you learn from these mistakes. And
Yeah.
that's why I tell these stories because perhaps somebody has made some mistakes with money. And this is where you can change. So back to the relationship question.
Yeah.
That's the stuff you got to find out. What's your heart attitude? Okay, I borrowed this money. I was foolish, but this is what I'm doing now. I've learned to honor God. or I'm willing to do that. This is what we're going to do, how we're going to move forward in our relationship. Getting those things more in alignment, the right way and biblically, I think that's more important. And long term, you can get out of debt. You can get your finances in order because your finances are not always going to be there. But if you don't get this stuff aligned and your heart not right with money and your relationship not right with money, then you're always going to have money problems and always going to have money fights.
Yeah, so you're always going to be fighting. It's always going to be
Yes.
contentious. You never get out of it. But like you're just saying, if you make that decision and take that step to say we're going to choose to believe it belongs to God and follow what you've been talking about today, you start a journey to actually money not being the problem.
That's right.
Which I'm sure is what we all want out there, is figuring out how to get past this so that actually we can move into the fullness of our relationships and just not let this thing come between, come
Right.
into relationships.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to have to go down this path a little bit more in a future episode, but I trust that you have enjoyed this. Please drop us a comment. Remember, if you have a question, send it through to us at drfaisalmalick.com. We love to get your questions and answer them as we can. But like and share, subscribe to the podcast, and we look forward to seeing you next time.